Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Zafar Saab, we really thank you for taking out from your precious schedule
Thank you very
time
much.
to be available for this
My
interview.
pleasure.
This is the third in the series of interviews on ethical leadership, which Dr. Zahur and I we have been conducting. Our first interview was with Sayyid Babar Ali. Second was with Dr. Ishrat Hussain, and the third one is with me.
Thank you very much.
We just want to understand and map out the local role models of leadership with a specific attention to ethical and values-driven leadership. As all of us understand that in the Pakistani context, being ethical and being values-driven is rather daunting a task. So let's start from you in person, that Zafar Masud, who is in front of us today. What has shaped Zafar Masud in the past 40, 50 odd years? What has made you as a person that you are?
Thank you very much, Doctor. Thank you very much, Dr. Zahur. The topic that you've picked up, I think it's a very, very important topic, and that needed to be discussed in all our boardrooms. Unfortunately, this is not being covered the way it's supposed to be covered. But I'm more humbled and I'm more obliged with the fact that you have put me in a group which is really an epitome of ethical leadership example. So thank you very much for that. Dr. Saab, in my case, and I believe in everybody's case, the ethics piece comes from your upbringing as a child, from your family. And that is instilled in you when you are growing up. And I remember very distinctly how my, parents have been able to make sure that those ethical values are instilled in their children. My mother particularly, although there were many other things as well, but the most important one was the empathy factor. Understanding other people's problems and try and help them out. And I think that's the primary requirement of a leadership role, is to be empathetic and compassionate. Now I'll elaborate on it, because there is an extent to which you can be compassionate and empathetic in a corporate setting, but nevertheless that's the primary ingredient for a leadership role. The second one was the fact that they, through their own actions, have always made sure that our ethical values are never compromised. And then I was very lucky to be working with bosses in my early lives who have also had very high ethical standards.
So, Masud Sab, can you narrate some specific instances of your childhood, especially from your family?
I'll just share something with you, which is part of my book as well, by the way. It's very much there. It's quite an interesting story. So I remember very, and some things itch in your mind, in your head. You can't forget those things. When I was in FC college, and we came from a middle class background, where we had the air conditioner in all our in our house, in all our rooms, but because of the high electricity cost, we used to share one room. The three brothers and the parents used to sleep in the same room. And mind you, these are young. That's young couple who's sleeping with their kids. One of my friends, acquaintance in FC college, told me that they have done a deal with the lineman, the Wabda lineman, and they have tweaked the meter in such a way that although you use all the air conditioner, but the bill only comes for one air conditioning. I was super excited about the whole thing. I thought, I'll show my value addition to my father. I went to him and I told him, I said, Papa, I have been able to crack, a formula of how we can have all the air conditioners working in the house. We can all sleep in our rooms, and yet the bill will only cover one air conditioning, one air condition. He turned around and said, "Okay, so what's the deal?" I said, and when he asked me this, I got more excited. But it seems that he's kind of getting around with the thought. I said, "What's the idea?" I said, "Well, the idea is that my friend who lives in the neighborhood, he'll hook me up with the lineman, and that lineman will then temper the bill and make sure that we'll be able to get away with it, and we'll pay something to him on the side." He just had a smirk on his face and turned around and told me, "I have an even better idea." And I go, "What's that?" He said, "You and I will go to Neela Gumbat and we buy a gun. And then you and I will go and rob a bank. I think that's a better deal. We get more money rather quickly, and this is what we must do. What you are coming up with is another way of robbing, is another way of stealing money." And this was the most, embarrassing moments in my life where I thought that, he's absolutely right. And that's how, and then that whole concept and idea died down immediately. But that's how he kind of make ourselves oriented with the thought of, leadership with ethics. No compromise on ethics ever. And I think this is where you develop your initial ethical values. I was very lucky to be part of the multinational setup right in the beginning, where by default, even if you try and do any tempering of the sorts, you are not allowed because the system is virtually foolproof. That's where it was further reinforced. And then in the overall family also, by the way, Dr. Mumtaz Said Sahab, who's the management guru, managerial challenge in the third world, my taya and my uncle and my mentor as well. Mumtaz Said Sahab was part of the public sector setup. My uncle, the younger uncle, my chacha, was part of the multinational setup as well. Both of them I saw in action and keeping the high standards of ethical values to, and this is, by the way, I'm talking about when the systems were very, very relaxed in the public sector setup. Now public sector is much more because of various regulator becoming more powerful, law enforcement agency becoming more active. At that time, there was no concept of all of this. And I saw them firsthand how they kept the standards very high. And that, I think, was something which helped me in developing my own, my own value system and ethical standards.
Has there been any impact of your ancestors' background from Amroha and Rais Amrohi Sahab, Taki Amrohi Sahab, John Elia Sahab, and mashallah, there is a list of illustrious personalities in your own family. Any imprint, any influence from them?
So I say this often, and I said that somewhere, I don't remember where, one of the talks, that while in the worldly sense they were very, very accomplished people, but for me, they were very good human beings. Their standards were so high in terms of empathy, in terms of ethical values, that to my mind, they're much more accomplished and successful people in that context than the worldly context as such. So worldly aspects aside, for example, Taki Sahab left Jung because he had fallen out with Ayub Khan at that time. And this was the time when his daughter was getting married, again we are talking about a middle class household where the marriage is a big event and a lot of funding is necessary. He just walked away from Jung because the editorial there was intervention from the government on the editorial policy of the newspaper, and he said, I'm not going to take it, and I'm leaving it. And those are the stories and anecdotes which helped me shape up my own. I remember very clearly, although not in the ethics sense, but it's in a different sense, is also something which is very important. John Elias Saab got the presidential award. He refused to go and accept it. He said that I will not receive that award because I don't think that I need to go and be recognized by somebody that I don't think is worthy of recognizing me, for that matter. Now, it's not directly in that ethical sense, squarely doesn't fall into this. But if you look at the flip side of this,
taking a position,
absolutely,
yeah, exactly,
against somebody who is very powerful, who could benefit him in many ways, he just refused to, bow down. Similar, Rahim Saab was murdered, and obviously there were some values that if he was too compliant, he would never would have confronted this situation. And so all of this actually were part and parcel of my learning in the initial days.
After your graduation from IBA Karachi, I understand that you served the corporate sector for many years, and as an executive in the corporate sector, in the multinational corporations, did you make any decisions which made you comfortable, or which made you uncomfortable? Yeah.
So, Dr. Saab, in my case, actually, it's 360 degree. So I started with a multinational bank, and then it's multiple jurisdictions as well. Worked in Pakistan, worked not based out of UAE, but yes, UAE was another hub, which when I was setting up my own business and setting up Dubai Islamabad from scratch, I was based there too. And then I actually worked in Africa too. So in multiple jurisdictions, but in multiple, in different forms of businesses. For example, started with multinational bank, then worked for a regional bank. I worked for as a regulator on the board of directors of the regulator. I set up my own business, ran it very successfully, spun it off. I'm still working in a public sector organization as an executive, and I've worked in the government setup too as a DG of the attached department of the government, which is very different from working in multinational in a SOE. So in that sense, I find myself very lucky to have worked. And by the way, I've also worked for DFI. I set up InfraZam in Pakistan from scratch in Pakistan. I was a consultant there with Karandaz and Pitch, which is the UK-based FCDO company. So in that sense, I have kind of flavored all the different possible disciplines, the management structures for that matter. And that has given me various different situations just where I had to take certain decisions which perhaps were not very comforting, I would say. But Dr. Saab, I have always been very clear in my head that if something is not of my satisfaction, then I won't do it. And I should always be ready to walk away if something like that comes my way. I'll quote you 2 or 3 examples of that. So when in multinational, generally you do not face this kind of situation. So initial days in Citi, in American Express, in Dubai Islamic, and then Barclays, it was not as bigger a problem. But when I got into my own business, that's where I was um, um, I was put in a situation where there were certain difficult decisions need to be taken, and I made a call that I will not do it. And luckily, before that, I sold the business and moved on. But there was situation that if I had to continue with this, I would have to do something. For example, it was a power project, so taking the through the EPC arrangement, taking the kickback from the EPC operator as an upfront equity into the company. I was not willing to do it. Luckily, before the project would reach to that point, the company was sold and I didn't have to do it. If I had to do it, I would have quit the company very clearly. I went into, when I went to National Savings, the first day 2 forms came on my table. One form said that, you are entitled for a blue passport and you have to fill the form and you get the blue passport. And the other was to get from the cabinet division, get the Land Cruiser out for me as the DG of this organization. I refuse to take both of them because I think those are the hook for you to start compromising on the difficult decisions. Because I really don't see any reason why I need a blue passport because, the countries I want to go to, I have the visa. And this is where the containment comes through as well. And it comes from your upbringing. The other one, I had my own car. I brought that car in. Even on a slightly lighter note, my mother is a housewife, and Taki Saab's daughter, so she has no worldly thoughts whatsoever, ideas. One day I came to my house and she told me, "Are you really working for the government?" I said, "Yes." "Are you a grade 21 officer?" I said, "Yes." She said, "Why don't I see these green number plate cars here all the time?" Because in my various settings, I've seen that, somebody is working for the government, you have a fleet of cars there. I said, "Because I don't see a reason. Because you," and I told her this, "because you made me you made my ethical values in such a way that if something is not necessary, why would I get into all of this? If I have enough of my own, why do I need to just grab something which is not important?" So that is something which was not easy. When I came to BOP also, many times I had to say no to people where, I kind of realized that my job is over. And I literally went with my resignation. It will at least happen 2 or 3 times. I don't want to get into the details of all of this because it's not appropriate. But it was happened at least 3-4 times that I remember now.
So, in your career, there must have been situations which required you to make a very conscious decision on the professional side to go with X or go with Y. And the dilemma was that one was more aligned with what you believed in and the other relatively less. And of course, there are other people involved. So can you share with us some instances where it was a business-related call, but it was driven through or driven by primarily your value system?
Very good question, Doctor. So first of all, you have to draw a line. Draw a line, and this is really your own line. I mean, it could be challenged by somebody else that is not the right line, but this is your line, whereby you decide that you will not cross this line because it will start compromising the fabric of your organization. So I drew a line on day one, and I said, this is the line I will never never cross, come what may. And many times, what has happened is that, I've been asked to do something which was asking for treading into the area where I don't want to go to because it's crossing my line. And I had to either find a solution which is acceptable for both the parties. In most of the cases, you have to be very creative about it. Otherwise, you just have to say no, knowing well that this could have repercussions on your personal career as well.
And of course, in some cases, also the organization.
Because the look, Doctor Saab, the point is that for your personal interest, you just throw the organization under the bus.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So the only problem comes in when you are protecting your own organization, and this is where the line becomes important. One instant I would like to quote you, and this was one of the most prestigious positions in this country. I was tipped for that position. The decision maker at that time, the finance minister, he asked me to look at, to compensate, to accommodate someone, which I thought is not good for the organization. This was the peak time when I was pitched for that position. There were 100% things moving in my direction. One Sunday I decided, Doctor Saab, that do I need to throw my organization under the bus just for my personal interest, because I've been pitched for this big position. And Doctor Saab, I decided on that day, I will not do it. I did not accommodate that request.
Where was that coming from? This decision of not accommodating the request?
Because
where was this coming from? This value set, where was this coming from?
This was coming from the fact that, you know, the family that I'm coming from, the ethical values that I grew up with, that did not allow me to put my personal interest ahead of the interest of the organization, which is protecting and feeding, very many people.
Did you have, do you have any role models, for example, that look, whenever I face an ethical dilemma, I would think about that, what would that person do? What would his or her choice be? Do you have any such models in your mind?
Doctor, you know, one particular role model, I think, is a bit of a, is not fair. So in every situation, you find different kind of role models. Most of the cases, I find my father as the role model. But then there are many other cases where, you know, you find other people, very inspiring stories coming your way as the role model to be pursued. In our religious side also. Imam Hussain है, Rasulullah मेरे बहुत role model है, Hazrat Ali बहुत बड़े role model है.
So religion itself also offers you some templates.
Absolutely,
or values.
Completely. Although I am not a ritualistic man, I am a zero ritualistic man, but when it comes to the ethical values, you do draw the analogy and some kind of inspiration.
Very briefly, if you were to, for example, refer to the Prophet, peace be upon him, and his progeny, or Hazrat Ali alayhi salam, or Imam Hussain alayhi salam, what exactly would be the value, one or two or three values
that you have taken from their your life? And
So you know, in case of, for example, from Rasul's life, there were the key and the foremost for me, and ittifaq se, interestingly enough, I'm just reading that book, is Prophet's ethical principles when it came to business. How he made sure that, by the way, he was the biggest supporter of the market-based economy. But he also made it a point that the consumer interest is not compromised. He also made it a point that his business principles are so high that people trust him with his eyes closed. To my mind, that's a huge thing. Same goes for Hazrat Ali, for example. Hazrat Ali's letter to Malik al-Ashtar, who was the governor of Egypt, in which he says that, you have to make sure that you respect the businessman, because these are peace-loving people, and they have an element of greed too. So you need to manage that very well through a regulatory environment, but in a way that neither the seller nor the buyer are
So
suffering.
these are principles being laid out centuries back.
back. And these are, to my mind, Dr. Saab, there is some kind of misconception also that in Islam, perhaps the capitalism doesn't fit in. These are the principle of the market, the real market principles. And to my mind, these are the principal ethical values which are very important in life.
And Imam Hussein?
Imam Hussein was standing in front of the tyrant, not giving an. अब देखिए उनके लिए it was very easy for him to do a bath, to do the allegiance to him, to legitimize him for something he thought that he is not legitimized for, and could have moved away as a much wealthier and a comfortable man. He just had to compromise. He just had to agree. He didn't have to sacrifice 72 people of his family. He didn't have to sacrifice his own life. He just had to compromise on one aspect, that I'll give you the allegiance, and that's about it. I'll go and, do my own thing, make me comfortable, give me enough money. Well, he did not compromise.
It may be said, for example, for somebody who is an agnostic person or somebody who doesn't believe in religious personalities, they would say that those were the ideal times and those were the ideal people and they took a stance. And but we have to be very practical, and we have to be, given that you work in a public sector bank, and of course you also face political and commercial pressures. So how do you ensure that those the values that you are drawing from those personalities, they remain relevant and practical?
Let me just start with first clarifying one thing first. I'm that agnostic person, by the way. So I'm not looking them as a religious personalities.
As an individual, you look.
I'm looking them as an individual with their stories. Similar are the stories. For example, मेरा बड़ा favorite, one of my most favorite are Hazrat Isa. My most favorite are Socrates. Socrates, similar principles, where my Nana has written this book, which my cousin has translated, Sumaira. It's Future of Civilization, in which he has compared, Sayyid Muhammad Taqi Sahib has compared Hussein with Sukrat and with Socrates and with Jesus. And I think all of them have their own things to offer. They're equally respectable for me, especially Socrates, so for me, these are not religious personalities. The difference between the three, by the way, and this is again ethical, to my mind, the difference, Taqi Sahib hasn't talked about it, but my Hussein's sacrifice is a little bigger than the others. Why? Because those two were the sacrifice of their own personalities. This is bigger because in front of him, his loved ones had gone very different, because I have kind of similar situation I have confronted with, where, if I would have gone, I wouldn't have known what my loved ones are suffering. But that suffering of the loved ones is a much bigger sacrifice, knowing well that you can still save them by giving away your principle. And this is why, but for me, Socrates and Jesus are also very important people.
Zafar Sahib, in one's career, and you have led organizations, played key roles, there are always situations that when you look back, you feel that maybe I should have done things differently. So, not that you had compromised on this, but again, there's always those gray areas where you feel that maybe if I have to do it again, I would do it differently. Are there any such examples?
Just to complete the response to the question of Dr. Jawad, I think the situation, even at that time, was very much in their control. They could have compromised and given in to the tyranny and moved on. So maybe I have not been confronted with that level of sacrifice, but as a miniature level of sacrifice is necessary from a leader all the time. This is expected and given the circumstances. And you have to do it. The strength that you get, Dr. Saab, is from these stories and these inspirations. And this is where these people become very important for me. There are many other people, by the way, that I could think of as I go along. But these are the immediate ones that I could think about, as somebody who gives you the strength to make the. If they could do this kind of sacrifice, why can't you do even a
They become your reference point in terms of your own thought process. So coming to the other question, the situation that if you look back, can you narrate any examples where you feel that you could have been more successful or more effective? Yeah.
Dr. Saab, one I just quoted to you. I didn't get that position, by the way, because the same gentleman actually put his foot down and said, if this guy come, I will leave the job. And he was more important for the establishment at that time. And he got away with this. I compromised many times. There are many examples like this, but this is the most significant one because this is something which would have been very big for me 3.5 years ago. So 3.5 years ago, I would have been 52.5, and I would have gotten that position. It would have been a big deal for somebody like me.
You have, Alhamdulillah, survived 2 very different governments.
Doctor, the point is that you have to remain steadfast on your principles. Other people also start. My own thesis is, my own experience is that when you are steadfast in your own principles, people respect you for that as well. Immediately, momentarily, they don't appreciate it perhaps. But when they look back and they realize later on that you are somebody who can stand up for his principles, and they respect you for it. They may not like it, but they do respect you for that. For me, more important thing is people respecting me rather than me, giving in to these worldly, favors. Also, interestingly enough, I'm a comfortable guy, and monetarily I'm quite comfortable. I don't need money as such. But more so, I remember very distinctly when I was coming as the CEO of Bank of Punjab, my mother was most upset. Why the hell are you going there? Why are you going back into public sector? Before that, I was DG National Saving, and it was very, law enforcement agencies were very, it was an activist stance that they had took at that time, and there was a lot of negativity. And she never cared that I'm becoming. Even today, she doesn't care what I have achieved as an executive or as in the worldly world. But as his son was very high ethical standards and who is very empathetic to people. And this has kept me going every time, that because my loved ones care about those things in life which are non-worldly in nature, it doesn't matter. I will move on. I'll just go away if something is not just fitting in with my principles.
Senior position like you have been and you are currently, what can you do to actually make sure that the other key members of your team and your organization also upholds similar or same sort of values?
Doctor, 2 things here. One is I'll just take a step back. And after my accident, the 2 things which have manifested very obviously is that I've become too fearless.
Mm-hmm.
In 2020.
In 2020. I've become too fearless. So now I'm so fearless that I have to contain myself, that I do not do something which I can perhaps sustain, but the people around me won't not be.
Such as?
So for example, if I just confront somebody for something which is totally unnecessary but against my own wishes, which I can handle in slight in a more tactful manner, it's possible that I will be shown the door, and my people who will be imposed with somebody that they have to compromise on. I don't want to put them in that situation. So I have to make sure that I remain fearless. I'll speak what I have to speak, but I have to be tactful also, that I will only compromise on those things where it is really something earth shattering, not something which could be handled tactfully. The other thing is that I am in a hurry. I've realized that whatever you need to do in life, you have to do it now. Don't even wait for the second minute, because who knows whether you have the opportunity to do it or not. And those two things have kind of transformed my leadership role also instinctively. What has happened, Dr. Zahur, that when you start practicing the ethical values at that level, irrespective of what your policy says, irrespective of what your sermon says to them in your town halls, it's your actions
which start
which
influencing.
drive them
Okay.
to do the right thing. And I find that to be the most effective way of putting yourself as an example to your peers and your subordinates to follow the right thing, the ethical path. And that puts more responsibility on you.
There is this school of thought which says that whatever, and I think you have reinforced that your values, how you approach things, is shaped by your own experiences in your personal life. So when you are developing other people, so it will be probably important that they also have a similar set of experiences. So do organizations need to provide opportunity to different levels of management cadres so that they could get exposure to those situations, and then over a period of time, some of those things are ingrained as their own values?
So I am a huge supporter of decentralization. I'm a huge supporter of giving empowerment to our people. You have to devise the system in such a way, and I'll give you quote you an example for it as well, whereby you empower your people to take the decision. You let them make mistakes or to some extent, but then if those mistakes are repeatedly done, then there is no room for it, and you should not shy away from taking difficult decisions. In a public sector organization, having a performance improvement plan is almost unheard of and the most difficult thing. We have gotten rid of 1,000 people in the last 3 years under performance improvement plan.
Through a proper system and through a proper
Process.
Yeah.
We have not taken back even a single person under any pressure whatsoever. And you can well imagine the kind of pressure that could possibly come our way. Now, this is when you start doing this, you make your people more empowered, you make them realize that this is important, and they then pursue the path the same way.
It also becomes part of their own approach, their own thinking.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Then you have to do small little things. For example, I do not meet up with the customers much unless it's absolutely important and there is a big problem that I have to resolve. I don't meet up with them because I tell them upfront that if you come with the mindset that you come to me and I overrule my people, that is not happening. You have to convince them at the end of the day. I have to convince them at the end of the day. If they don't get convinced, then I'm very sorry. I will not be able to entertain it. And you really have to practice and empower your people. That's how your people become more empowered as well. You throw them in the deep end and let them pick the decisions and be ready for them to make mistakes also, but to an extent where you have enough tolerance for it.
Given that banking, which is your sector and your organization, is a business of trust.
Completely.
But at the same time, we also identify for our senior managers and branch managers and elsewhere some targets. So how do you ethically reconcile this, that this is a business of trust, but also there are performance targets and performance incentives?
So, Dr. Saab, the message is very clear. No compromise on your ethical principles to meet your targets. If you meet your target by compromising on your ethical principles, you have no place in this organization. If you fall short of your targets but uphold your ethical principles, then you will be given the chance again.
Can you give us some example?
So many times what has happened is that, people have come to me and told me that, we have to, for example, there is a large deposit which is coming our way, but we have to, make the finance manager of that organization happy or whatever of the sorts. Can we do it? I said, we don't need the deposit. Let it be. We will not compromise on this at all. Come what may, irrespective of how desperate we are. And you really have to practice it. If you do not put your foot down.
These are the areas where what we say zero tolerance.
Zero tolerance.
Yeah.
So zero tolerance on harassment. Zero tolerance. We fire people immediately if there is a harassment case against them, irrespective of where the pressure is coming from, to let it go. One incident that happened in our organization, there was a lady who was our employee, and there's a gentleman who was our employee as well. They had some problems, and the gentleman manhandled her outside the bank, but it was captured in a video. The complaint come to us and told us that this gentleman has mishandled the lady. The lady filed a complaint, and that has to be investigated. When I saw that video, I said, nothing doing. They put so much pressure on the lady. That guy was very influential. He put so much pressure on the lady that she withdrew her application and said, there is no problem, the compromise is done. I got a call from somebody very, very influential asking me, now that this happened, let it go. I said, this will not happen. While I am the CEO of the organization, I have seen the video myself. This is not acceptable to me. And we will not let it go. The gentleman had to leave the organization. So there is certain, you have to show it by example that there is no tolerance for such things. Even if your performance is slightly, not up to the mark, then your rating will be down. But you still be part of the organization. You have another chance to do better.
So when you are recruiting people, just bring me to this thing. So you have a certain set of things that you like everybody to follow. And it's very difficult to assess whether a person will be willing to live. So is there any aspect of how you select people where this is factored in?
So Dr. Saab, to be honest with you, 2-3 things matter to me a lot. Interview per se give you a very less insight into the individual. Although you can still figure out with the body language,
you can get some sense,
that what kind of mindset that gentleman or lady has. But then the family background matters a lot. What kind of family background he's coming from.
What sort of values the person has lived through.
Yeah. Absolutely. And then another thing that's very important is the fact that you must get some kind of check from his colleagues, whether he's references, whether he is or she has been behaving, how they have been behaving in different environments. Albeit a fresh graduate from the school, how has been she or he has been behaving in the school as well. And the third one is that you have to make sure that when they come into the system, you do test them. You do make sure that you will be able to keep them on probation, so that you'll be able to assess whether they are upholding the ethical values. There are various other ways as well. We, by the way, also do psychometric analysis.
Okay.
At the time of recruitment?
Yes. To figure out, what is their mindset. By the way, we've introduced psychometric assessment in our lending portfolio also in agriculture and SME.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah.
Because we believe that it's very important. If your mindset is not right,
Yeah.
then you will not be
those
able to deliver.
inclinations you need to pick up. And
In terms of, once again, the ethical conduct and values and practices of employees and senior management at the Bank of Punjab, there is one view that legal compliance and compliance with the regulators' requirement, that is enough. And there is another view that legal compliance is the minimal which any organization should do. Do you have any view on this? Do you have any examples?
Zero. You have to obviously abide by the rules of the game, but I give zero weightage to them. In UK, there is no written constitution. It is the culture of the organization and norms that you set up becomes more important. There is an extent to which you can control the mindset of people, the ethical values of people through the regulation. It is the culture of the organization. It is your own actions and your senior management actions which drive those ethical values.
Can you give us some example where regulators' requirement was somewhere here, but the bank and your requirement was somewhere here?
So, for example, many cases, gift policy. There is no per se a gift policy by the regulator. At least I am not aware of it. But we have set a gift policy in our organization where any gift beyond 15,000 rupees has to be surrendered to the HR. And I started myself. Most of the gifts that come my way are beyond 15,000 rupees. And we kept the limit at 15,000 on purpose as well. And we introduced that ourselves, that we have to make sure that, for example, although there is no requirement of declaring your personal shareholding, I do that voluntarily to my board every quarter. What my share, although I don't play in the shares, but I have given it to somebody to manage the shares, a company to manage the shares on my behalf. Whatever my portfolio is, I declare that every quarter to my board. There is no legal requirement.
Is it also your requirement from your colleagues and team members?
So, because it's not a legal requirement, I don't impose them on them because I am doing it myself. I expect them to do the same.
You have implemented the 15,000 rupees policy.
That I've done it. Because that is something which I think could compromise in a big way the
decision-making process
down the line. And that is something which, so 15,000 actually coming from somebody at the very initial level receiving the gifts as well. But the shareholding perhaps is more relevant to myself and my direct reports and all. The interesting thing is, Dr. Saab, that what I've witnessed is that my senior people also started making a submission of it to the HR.
That's nice. They're following a role model.
Some people don't do it.
Now, something to do with your book, the Seat 1C, about your book. You, of course, underwent a major crash in 2020. So, Zafar Masud before Seat 1C and after 1C, what's the single major difference that you see in two Zafar Masud?
So, two things that I mentioned to you earlier: fearless,
more impatient, trying to do
totally impatient. I have always been very impatient, by the way, but super impatient now. And a reinforcement of certain earlier principles, which were tentative perhaps. For example, the element of empathy. For example, the most important thing in life is the relationship with people. Where is this coming from? This is coming from the fact that when my crash happened and I was crying for help, the people who came and rescued me, they did not know that they were rescuing who they were rescuing. My position My money
Didn't matter there.
didn't matter at that time. It was the goodness of other people, and the goodness of other people comes through, Dr. Saab, when you show goodness to other people as well. This is what my thesis. And when they rescued me, they could not go back, because if they wouldn't have pulled me out of that wreckage, I would have met the same fate, because there was a fire there, and during the process of rescuing me, they could have suffered also, because the fire would have erupted then. But putting their own lives in danger just to save somebody's life is one lesson, is the goodness of people. When I went to the hospital, I met so many people there, Doctor, who just came to see me as out of their goodness. There were no ulterior motives. So that was reinforced, that it's the empathy, it's the goodness of people, it's your relationship with people that matters. Because, after my crash, for few hours, I wasn't sure whether I was alive, and other people were not sure whether I was alive as well. So this is a time period where, I could have imagined that if I would have gone, how would have people reacted about me? And that at that time I realized that it was the relationship, my relationship with the individual people, that was more important than anything.
So I think maybe one infer that this whole experience has made you being more positive about things rather than worrying more negatively.
I have always been somebody who was very positive about things. My grandfather Taki Saab always used to say that always see glass half full. That is something also ingrained in my head, and that is something, that's the way I always looked at things. Dr. Saab, in the same discussion, let me just share another story with you. When I was in National Savings, I had made a campaign to convert this from a department into a corporation. And I had prepared everything for it. It had supposed to go to but unfortunately it fell between the cracks. But at that time, when my contract came up for renewal in August, in June, the protest started against me, because I had gotten rid of almost 300 people who were on a contract then, and I engaged I got the money from FCDO and USAID and used them to help us in digitizing the thing. So digitizing per se was a problem. Getting rid of people who were not delivering was a problem. And third was to convert the organization into a corporation, where the reward, risk and reward, will become more important for the organization, and the customer service will become more important. Obviously, there were protests against me. There was a union which was very active. They held protest rights outside my office. I had very strained relationship with them. But when my crash happened, Doctor, they were the first one showed up at the hospital and offered my brother that they are available for blood or anything else that they could possibly help my family with. Where was this coming from? Because they realized that I was on the right. Although this may be something which they did not see at that time, but they knew in a heart and heart, or there was another agenda they were following. But in their heart and heart, they knew that I was doing the right thing. And they were there because they respected me for doing the right thing.
I remember that when this 2020 crash took place, the next day I read an interview of your father, Munawar Saeed Sahab. He said that he had offered Zohran prayer, and after Zohran prayer, he was reciting Dua Tawassul, Jummah prayer, and he was reciting perhaps Dua Tawassul.
That's correct.
And so his understanding was, as a practicing Muslim, that there was a connection. That was the time when you were being saved. I just want to ask a provocative question, that you are a non-ritualistic, you describe yourself. but the values are coming from the same people, including your parents, and also at least 3 of the 4 personalities that you identified. They are people of religion. So how does it reconcile that these values are coming from people of religion, but you yourself do not really see this as coming from religion?
So, Dr. Saab, all of them never impose their religious thoughts and principles on us, on the next generation. And they always made sure that the essence of religion is not lost out in the process. So while my Nana's side, Taki Sahib, they were not ritualistic at all. My father is very ritualistic, my mother is very ritualistic, but they never imposed them on those rituals on us.
Like Rafiddin. So there is no compulsion in it.
But
Not
they,
at all.
but they emphasize the real spirit and the values part. Right?
The value part, there is no compromise on. And they always made it a point that, while they're following the rituals, they never compromise on those values because of the rituals. But because they're following the rituals, therefore, those things are not more important. And I think they've been able to successfully instill those values in us. And this is why they're satisfied people. They never insisted on us to pursue the ritualistic piece, because they see that, the values they wanted to instill in us through those ritualistic actions, they have been able to successfully do it.
We would be utilizing this interview, this video clip, parts of the video clip, in our executive education at LUMS and also at the South Asian Academy of Management. Do you have any message for our participants in terms of do's and don'ts? So, for example, many of our MBA students, they would be relatively fresh when they go into the industry. And some of them, not the majority, hopefully, they have this idea that in order to be successful, sometimes they have to engage in shortcuts, and sometimes they have to put the ethics on the side burner. Do you have any suggestions for them, any tips, any do's and don'ts?
So, Dr. Saab, one thing is to say what is required to be said. So the answer is very clear, of course not. But that story doesn't finish here. I have to now make this more cogent for them why it is not important. First of all, the shortcuts come back and hound you one way or the other. They may temporarily give you some kind of respite, but you are a people, you are the professionals for a long game. When you look yourself into the long-term perspective, then these short-term gains will become immaterial. Always look at things in a long-term context, because you are a long-term player. Even if you become the CEO of the organization, this is not the end of the world. This is actually the beginning of the world. And you need to prove yourself. There are many CEOs who come and go. You have to be a different CEO from the others. And for that different CEO, your process of development and delivery will never stop. So you have to look at long-term things, then short-term gains will not become important. Secondly, and this has happened to me many times, it's happened to me now also, what is due for you comes your way one way or the other. You just have to be steadfast in your principles. Things will come your way. It may take some detour. It may take a longer time, but it does come your way what you deserve. What you deserve, and I'm not talking about in a spiritual sense, I'm talking about in a practical sense. The opportunity will come your way. It may come a little later. So please don't get impatient. Do not think that it's the end of the world if your appraisal is being... take it in a stride. If you haven't got excellent in your appraisal, you're very good, it's fine really. Just look at it positively to achieve excellent next time. And this is the way you need to look at life. The third most important thing is, the most important thing is what impact you are leaving on people, because this will be your real legacy. And all your decisions should be measured and weighed in such a way that it will not compromise on other people's due what they deserve. And this is where most of the people go wrong, when they only take the decision from their own perspective and forget about the larger impact of it on other people. People will remember you for what you have done for them. They don't care if you were a CEO. They don't care if you were the richest man. If your money, if your position does not benefit them. And this is what most important thing in life is, to my mind.
Thank you,
Thank
Dr.
you,
Saab.
Ji, for your
Thank
time,
you,
and I
sir.
think we've
My pleasure.
got some very good
It's an honor
insights.
for me.
Really appreciate your time, and I'm sure that our audience would also benefit from your insights and valuable experiences. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.